The Bay, which is, and I never thought I'd say this, it is an inverted commas found footage movie that manages to do something else interesting with found footage. So the story is, it's set in a small Maryland town. There is a great big day of celebration in which everything seems to be progressing normally, but suddenly people start developing horrible welts, horrible sores, horrible illnesses, and terrible, terrible stuff starts to happen. At the beginning of the movie, what we see is somebody saying, here are the video diaries that I made whilst this thing happened, and I'm the only person who's speaking out, because all we know is that at the end of it, all the tapes were confiscated by the government and tried to be hushed up. Here's a clip.
Emergency operations.
Yeah, hi, this is Dr. Jack Abrams over at the Atlantic Hospital in Claridge, Maryland.
How can we help you today?
We're in the middle of some kind of bacterial outbreak.
This is Dr. Williams in communicable disease. You believe you may have a bacterial case?
Not one, 30.
What?
I got 30 people in the waiting room of my hospital right now.
What are the symptoms?
The entire group is broken out in blisters, boils, lesions.
Where?
Face, neck, legs, chest. I got a woman whose entire backside is covered in boils.
All right. When did this begin?
This morning. Today.
What do you think it is?
I have no idea what it is.
So basically, during the course of the thing, we see it's Chesapeake Bay in Maryland falling under the spell of some kind of outbreak which nobody fully understands. Barry Levinson, who directed it, says that originally what happened was somebody approached him to make a documentary, and the documentary was to do with environmental issues and ecological problems, all that sort of thing. He thought, well, the problem is that this story has been told, very well, and I'm not sure that I want to tell that story again. How would I make it dramatic? Well, the way in which we make it dramatic is that we take certain elements that we know, which is to do with dumping pollution into water, which is to do with parasitic organisms that we really do know exist, which is to do with things that are that are within the popular consciousness, nuclear radiation leaks, all that sort of stuff, and then we'll push the envelope a little bit, we'll exaggerate it out a certain amount into what is essentially a horror film, but it's a horror film with, in his words, a point, with a meaning. And you're yawning your head off because I am boring you to pieces.
No, you're not.
But here's what's interesting.
It sounds like a really good film.
I said a few months ago at the end of, I think it was Chernobyl Diaries, I really never want to see a found footage movie ever again. The whole cycle has run its course. I'm so bored by it. We all know these tropes, and the tropes are always, you spend ages and ages sitting around watching people doing absolutely nothing, and then after half an hour, some cutlery falls off a rack and goes bang, and it's that quite loud, quite loud. And of course, immediately after I had said that, a couple of people tweeted and said, yeah, well, you still have The Bay to go, and I wouldn't call an absolute moratorium on the found footage film until you see The Bay. And I have to say, it's one of the best of the genre that I've seen. There were moments in it that genuinely made me jump. I mean, I didn't expect, and I haven't jumped in a found footage movie in living, probably since Blair Witch Project. There were moments in it that really made me. There are whole lots of stuff in it. We saw Outbreak not so long ago, but there's an awful lot of stuff in it which is squeamish making, and which is done in a way which is, in the best possible sense, repulsive. Don't mean repulsive as in graphic, although there is graphics of in there, but repulsive as in that kind of skin crawling feeling that you get from from films that deal with proper terror. And of course, there is underlying it all, as Levinson said at the beginning, there is this sort of eco idea. I was very impressed by it, and I was surprised by it.